Welcome to the Shawnee Library, friends and neighbors and mostly friends. Okay, then. Tonight's the conclusion of King Solomon's Mines, and I've got to warn you, we might be running a little bit under the hour. But first, a quick recap. Alan Quatermain is our hero. He's an adventurer and a white hunter based in Durban, what is now South Africa. He's approached by aristocrat Sir... I always say aristocrat. Got to be my Disney upbringing. He's approached by aristocrat Sir Henry Curtis and his friend Captain Good, seeking his help finding Sir Henry's brother, who was last seen traveling north into an unexplored interior on a quest for the fabled King Solomon's Mines. Quatermain has a mysterious map purporting to lead to the mines, but he'd never taken it seriously. However, he agrees to lead an expedition in return for a share of the treasure, or for a stipend for his son if he happens to be killed along the way. Now, Quatermain actually has little hope they'll ever return alive, but he reasons that he's already outlived most people in his profession, so dying in this manner at least ensures that his son will be provided for. They also take along a mysterious native, one Umbopa, who seems more regal, handsome, and well-spoken than most porters of his class, but who is very anxious to join the party. Traveling by ox cart, they reach the edge of the desert, but not before a hunt in which a wounded elephant claims the life of a servant. They continue on foot across the desert, almost dying of thirst before finding the oasis shown halfway across the map. Reaching a mountain range called Suleimanberg, they climb a peak, one of Sheba's breasts, and they enter a cave where they find the frozen corpse of José Silvestre, the 16th century Portuguese explorer who drew this map in his own blood. That very night, a second servant dies from the cold, and so they leave his body next to Silvestre's to give him a companion. They cross the mountains into a raised valley, lush and green, known as Kukwanaland. The inhabitants of a well-organized army and society, and they speak an ancient dialect of isiZulu. Kukwanaland's capital is Lu, the destination of a magnificent road from ancient times. I forgot to bring the monkeys. Darn it. The city of Lu is dominated by a central royal kraal. They soon meet a party of Kukwana warriors who are about to kill them all when Captain Good nervously fidgets with his false teeth, making the Kukwanas recoil in fear. I had an uncle who used to do that, and it was pretty nasty. Thereafter, to protect themselves, they style themselves as white men from the stars, sorcerer gods, as it were, and they are required to give regular proof of their supposed divinity, considerably straining both their nerves and their ingenuity. They're brought before King Twala, who rules over his people with a ruthless violence. Now, Twala came to power years before, when he murdered his own brother, the previous king, and he drove his brother's wife and infant son Ignosi out into the desert to die. What an evil man. He should have killed him. Twala's rule is unchallenged. Now then, working with Twala is an evil and impossibly ancient, an impossibly ancient hag named Gagool, and who is his chief advisor. Now, Gagool, she roots out any potential opposition by ordering regular witch hunts and murdering without trial all those identified as traitors. When she singles out Umbopa for his fate, it takes all Quatermain's skill to save his life. Now, the witch doctor, the hag Gagool, it appears, has already sensed that Umbopa soon after reveals that he is Ignosi, the rightful king of the Kukwanas, who was ejected from the place when he was just a child, after Twala killed his dad. A rebellion breaks out, the Englishmen gaining support for Ignosi by taking advantage of their foreknowledge of a solar eclipse to claim that they will black out the sun as proof of Ignosi's claim. The Englishmen join Ignosi's army in a furious battle. Although outnumbered, the rebels overthrow Twala, and Sir Henry lops off King Twala's head in a duel. Which brings us up to where we are right now, except minus the monkeys. Sorry about that. If I can remember what they're called, I might make them res. They're called lemon. I don't remember what they're called. They'd probably run away anyway, and Rick and I'd have to hunt them down and kill them. Okay, so skip the monkeys. So we're going to find the diamonds. And when this Langpoor, I think that's it. Hang on, wait. It's so much more fun if you have monkeys. One of them was called Twitchy, I think. Hi, Rachel. Okay, I'm not finding any Langpoor monkeys. Well. Oh, you're there. Langer monkeys. We'll put one right here by me. And that's the one that runs off. And then we'll put one over here by Bear. No, Bear's not here. Big red coyote. He likes monkeys. And one more by kind of near the sky tower. Where are we going? We're supposed to be telling stories, aren't we? Okay. So this happened right after the battle. When the fight was finished, some of the soldiers carried Sir Henry and Captain Good into Twala's hut. I joined them. We're all so tired we couldn't stand up. My head was aching from the blow that had knocked me out that morning. Because we had saved her life, the beautiful Fulata offered to help us. Especially Captain Good. Let's just kill the media channel real quick. Bear with me here just a moment. I'm so sorry. It doesn't say it's on there. Oh, ain't that interesting? You don't know what's going on? We don't have anything set in the media channel. I don't know. Anyway, because we had saved her life, the beautiful Fulata offered to help us, especially Captain Good. When we took off our shirts of chain armor, we found that we were badly bruised underneath. Well, the armor had stopped the spears from going right through us, but it didn't keep them from hurting us. Fulata mixed up a plaster of greeny leaves that made us feel better. Good had a hole through the fleshy part of his leg. He had lost a great deal of blood. Sir Henry had a deep cut on his jaw from Twala's battle axe. But Captain Good knew how to stitch up cuts. He was able to clean out Sir Henry's wounds and his own and close them up. He smeared antiseptic ointment on them and he tied them with a handkerchief. We drank some strong soup that Fulata had made. Then we lay down on the pile of furs and rugs. Even though we were tired, nearly exhausted, sleep was difficult. Outside the hut, we could hear the wailing of women whose husbands and brothers and sons had died in today's war. 20,000 Kukwana soldiers had been killed. My sleep was not a peaceful one. I kept dreaming about the awful sights of battle. When we woke, we found Captain Good had a high fever. He was lightheaded and spitting up blood. He must have had an internal injury. Infadus came by to see how we were doing. He said all the soldiers considered Sir Henry to be the greatest warrior in the world. No one else could have fought all day and then killed Twala afterwards. All of Twala's men have pledged their loyalty to Ignosi, Infadus told us. Ignosi is now the king of our people. Late in the morning, Ignosi himself came by. He wore the royal diamond on his forehead. I couldn't help remembering when, as Umbopa the porter, he had come to us months before, looking to join us on our journey. "Hail, king," I said to him. "I am king because of the help I received from you three. I want to thank you." "What will you do now with Kagul?" I asked. "I will kill her. She made the land evil." "Well, she knows very much, Ignosi. She knows about the silent ones in the mountains and about the place where your kings are buried. Most of all, that old hag knows about the diamonds." You are right. I promised I would help you to find the bright stones." "Very well. I will let Kagul live if she will guide you." When Ignosi left, I checked on Good. He was out of his mind with fever now. He remained very ill for the next 4 days. I think if it had not been for Fulata, who helped nurse him, he likely would have died. Ignosi ordered that no one go near the hut so that Good could rest in quiet. Only Sir Henry and I went to check in on him occasionally. On the 5th night of his illness, I went as usual. He was no longer tossing and turning. He lay on the cushion very still. I thought he was dead. He began to cry. "Hush," Fulata said. "He needs rest." Moving closer, I saw that Good was not dead. He was fast asleep. The worst was over. He was going to live. Captain Good quickly regained his strength. Sir Henry told him all that he owed to Fulata. Good took me with him to see her so that I could interpret. "Tell her that I owe her my life. That I will never forget her kindness." "But you saved my life," Fulata said. "I am happy to repay you." A few days later, Ignacy held a gathering. All the Kukuana people came to proclaim him king. He gave each of the Greys who was still alive a present of cattle and promoted each to be an officer in the army. He thanked the three of us personally. "Everyone in my kingdom should treat these white men with respect," he declared. After the ceremony was over, we asked him if he found out anything about King Solomon's mines. "Three great figures sit in the mountains at the end of Solomon's road. Behind them is a cave where our kings are buried. Inside the cave is a secret room. Only Gagur knows how to enter. I don't know what is in it. There's a legend that many years ago, a white man found great wealth in that room. But the woman who led him there betrayed him. He was driven back to the mountains. No one has entered that room since." "Well, the story must be true," I said. "We found the white man in the mountains, old Jose Silvestre. We can find the room. You can take as many of the bright stones as you want," Ignacy said. "But only Gagur can show it to you. If she will not do so, she will die." He ordered the guards to bring Gagur into the hut. When they left her there, she collapsed. She looked more like a pile of rags than a person. "Beware my magic, Ignacy," she said. "Your magic saved Twala. I want you to show us the room where the shining stones are." She laughed. "None but I know that." "And I will never tell." "If you don't tell, I will kill you." "You wouldn't dare. If you kill me, you will be cursed forever." Ignacy took a spear, and he pressed it into the heap of rags until it pricked Gagul's skin. The old woman screamed, "Let me live! Let me live! I will show you." "It is well," Ignacy said. "Tomorrow you will go with Infadu and my white brothers. If you fail, you will die. You will die." "I will not fail, but evil will touch any man who goes to that place. A white man went there once, led by another woman named Gagur. He died alone in the mountains." "That was many years ago." "Maybe it was my mother's mother who told me about it, but her name was Gagur too, like me. You will see, all of you will see that evil comes to those who enter the place of death." Her laugh brought a chill to my bones. I wanted to find the diamonds, but I wondered even more about the legend of the mines than I did about the jewels and the other treasures that might lie before us. I knew that Sir Henry was even more anxious about his brother than any of us were about the riches or the legend. We had to press on. Our very natures as men demanded it from us. Yet I couldn't help thinking with a chill that seemed to come from my very bones of what horrors still lay ahead of us. It took us 3 days to hike up Solomon's Road to the base of the mountains known as the Three Witches. "And I'm melting." Infidus and Fulata came with us, along with a group of guards who carried Gagur on a stretcher. She muttered and cursed all the way. At dusk we set up camp for the night. In the morning we stared at the beautiful sight of those snow-topped mountains looming over us. The white ribbon of Solomon's Road stretched to the foot of the center peak, about 5 miles away, and then it stopped. And you can imagine how excited I felt. At last, at long last, we're getting close to those wonderful mines that the men had sought for centuries. Would we have any better luck than old Jose Silvestre, or his descendant, or Sir Henry's brother George? Maybe the place really was cursed. Then we'd soon find out, wouldn't we? We kept going faster and faster as we walked along the great road.
Why do you here hurry towards evil?
Gagool said. Her laugh made a shiver go up my spine. We kept going. At last we came to a huge circular hole at the base of the mountain. It was half a mile around, about 300 feet deep. Those doggone monkeys keep running into me. Stinking monkeys. It was half a mile around, about 300 feet deep. Do you know what this is? I asked Sir Henry and Captain Good. They shook their heads. This is a diamond mine. It's King Solomon's mine. Look, they use the water from that stream to wash out the diamonds. This is the pit marked on Jose Silvestri's map. The road split in two here and went along the hole on each side. Big blocks of stone had been placed along the rim to prevent the earth from caving in. On the far side, we saw three towering figures. We hurried around to see what they were. These are the silent ones, Captain Good said as we approached them. There were three huge stone carvings, each one 20 feet high. One was of a woman, the other two men. They all stared down the road toward Lou. They all looked very cruel. The one on our right had the face of a devil. They sat there as if they gazed across the plain forever. Who had carved them? Who had dug the huge pit in front of them? Who had made that great road that led us here? We would have given anything to know these answers, but those stone men and women were not about to tell us. Infidus saluted the silent ones with his spear. Are you ready to enter the place of death? Or will you take some food first? Well, if you got some cheese in there, we'll definitely take some food first, Infidus. Perhaps a little bit of wine. Our curiosity would burn more than hunger. We quickly ate the cheese, drank the wine, and off we went. We'll go in at once, before Gagool changes her mind about guiding us. We'll take some food with us. We packed some dried meat and a few gourds of water in a basket. 50 feet behind the big statue was a rock wall 80 feet high. Above that rose the huge snow-capped mountains. The guards put Gagool down. She gave an evil grin and hobbled toward the rock face. We followed her until we came to a narrow doorway that looked like the opening of a mine.
Now, white men from the stars, are you ready? I am going to show you the bright stones as you desired.
We are ready, yes.
Good. Your hearts must be strong to see what you shall see.
Infidus told Gagool they would wait outside. He was not allowed to enter the place of death. But do not harm these lords, he said. The hair of one of them be hurt. You shall die. Do you hear me?
I hear. Don't worry, I'll only do what the king asks me to. Here's the lamp. Let us go.
She lit an oil lamp and stepped forward toward the opening. You come with us, Falada? Captain Good asked.
I am afraid.
Then give me the basket of food, he replied.
No, I won't come.
Gagool turned and walked down the narrow passage. We followed. It was a terrible dark inside. We heard a sound like rushing wings. What's this? It said, something hit me in the face.
Bats. Keep moving.
We moved ahead through the dark for about 50 yards. Then the passage began to grow longer. In another minute, we were inside the most wonderful room. It was huge, bigger than the biggest cathedral. Dim light came from far above. Even more amazing were the enormous and beautiful pillars that ran along the sides of the room. They seemed to be carved of ice. Some of them were 20 feet thick. These are stalactites, I told the others. They formed over the centuries. Dripping water leaves deposits of mineral. We could hear the drip, drip, drip of water. Gagool wasn't interested in any of it, though. We followed her onward, thinking we could spend our time looking over the beautiful cave when we returned. At the farthest point of the cave, we found a square door that looked like the entrance to an Egyptian temple.
Are you ready to enter the place of death?
Gagool asked. Lead on, Good said with a smile. We were all trying to act as if we weren't scared. Fulata, though, grabbed Good by the arm for protection. Tap, tap, tap went Gagool's stick down the passage. I could feel the presence of evil in the passage and held back. Hurry, we'll lose our guide, Sir Henry said. I moved down the narrow cave about 20 yards more. We came out into a small room which had long ago been carved out of solid rock. The light was very dim here. All we could see was a stone table with a huge white figure sitting at its head, and the statues the size of men all around it. All but one were white. Then my eyes adjusted to the light. I saw what these figures were. The sight so upset me, even though I'm not superstitious, that I turned and started to run back out the door. Sir Henry grabbed me by the collar, and then he, too, saw what the figures were, and he began to sweat. Philada threw her arms around Good's neck and screamed. Gagool only chuckled. It was a terrible sight. At the end of the table stood a huge human skeleton, 15 feet high. He held a spear over his head. He seemed to be grinning. "Good heavens," said Good. "What are these things?"
Evil! Evil comes to him who enters the place of death. Come and look at the one you killed.
We moved closer. We were shocked when we saw the dark figure sitting at the table. It was the body of Twala himself. His head, which Sir Henry had cut off, rested on his knees. He was covered with a film that was almost like glass. "Look," said the water's dripping on him. He's turning into a stalactite. Now we looked more closely at the other figures. Each had been a man. The long drip of water had enclosed them in white minerals. They had become part of the cave. This was how the Kukwana preserved their dead kings. We stared in amazement. We could barely make out their faces through the layers of stone. 27 of them sat side by side at a table, including Ignosi's father. "They must have been putting the royal dead here for centuries," Sir Henry said. "That figure of death is even older," I said, pointing to the skeleton. "It was carved out of stalactite by whoever made the giant figures outside the mine." Gagool moved close to the giant skeleton and appeared to be offering prayers to it. "Gagool!" I didn't dare speak in more than a whisper. "Gagool! Lead us to the room where the stones are."
You are not afraid?
"Not at all."
Light your lamp, then.
We lit another oil lamp. Gagool pointed toward the wall behind the awful statue.
There. There is the room you seek.
"Don't joke with us."
I don't joke.
We moved the lamp closer. We saw that the rock was slowly rising. It was a door 10 feet high and 5 feet thick. It must have weighed 30 tons. We didn't see how Gagool had opened it, probably by some hidden lever. Anyway, this was it. This was it. Solomon's treasure chamber. What was inside? We would know in a minute. In the light of the lamps, I glanced at the faces of my friends. In the flickering shadows, I saw every possible emotion: hope, excitement, fear. Which one would win out over the others when we were once on the other side of the great stone door? I was so excited I began to shake. At last, at long last, King Solomon's diamonds.
Enter, white men from the stars. But know that another white man reached this country from over the mountains. He too was shown the hidden chamber by a woman who knew the secret of the door. That man filled a bag with bright stones.
What happened to poor Sylvester? I asked her.
How do you know his name? The man must have been frightened. He dropped the bag. He ran out with only one stone in his hand. But the king took that one. It is the one that Ignosi now bears on his forehead. The white man died in the mountains with nothing.
No one's been inside since? I asked, looking into the dark chamber.
None, she said. No one knows the secret but me. No one could find out that secret, even if he searched 1,000 years.
She hobbled into the room.
Come, my lords. Come and see if the stones are here. Come and see if death is here.
Waited a minute. I didn't really want to enter. "There goes," Captain Good said. "I'm not going to let that old witch scare me." We went on, followed by Fulata, who was shivering with fear. Sir Henry and I went after them. The passageway had been carved out of solid rock. We moved down it part way, and then Fulata, who was terribly afraid, said she felt faint and could go on no farther. She sat down against the wall. We left the basket of food and water with her and continued on. The end of the passage, was a painted wooden door. It stood open. In front of it lay a goatskin sack that appeared to be full of pebbles.
"There's the bag that the white man dropped."
Captain Good picked it up. "I think it is full of diamonds," he whispered. "Let's see what else is here," Sir Henry said. He took the lamp from Gagool and continued through the doorway. We went after him. "This is Solomon's treasure chamber, all right," I said. The little room had been carved out of the rock, although all along one wall were piled hundreds of elephant tusks. There was enough ivory here to make a man rich for life. On the other side were stacks of wooden boxes. "Maybe those are the diamonds," Good said. We hurried to look. The lid of the first box had been smashed, maybe by Silvestri himself. I thrust my hand inside. I pulled out not diamonds, but gold coins. They were marked with strange symbols that none of us had seen before. "These must have been used to pay the workmen of the mines," I said. "At least we won't be going home empty-handed." "The old Portuguese explorer must have put all diamonds into his bag," Good said. "Not all," Gagool said.
"Look in that dark corner. You will find 3 stone chests. 2 of them still sealed."
"How do you know these things?" I asked her.
"Some have eyes that can see through rock,"
she said mysteriously. I told Sir Henry to search the dark corner. "Good heavens, look here," he said a minute later. We hurried to where he was standing. The stone chests were 2 feet square. 2 of them were fitted with stone lids. The third was open. "Look," Sir Henry repeated. The bright sheen almost blinded us. The chest was full of glittering diamonds. Most of them were larger than any I'd ever seen. I gasped. We're the richest men in the world," I said. "If we can ever get them back to civilization," Sir Henry warned. Gagool laughed.
"There are the bright stones you love, white men. Can you eat them and drink them?"
I broke out laughing myself. I really don't know why. Sir Henry and Captain Good joined in. We all laughed and laughed, thinking of how rich we would be.
"Open the other chest,"
Gagool said.
"Take all that you want."
We lifted the heavy lids of the other chests. The second was almost full. The third contained only a few diamonds, but they were the biggest ones, some as large as pigeon eggs. While we were looking at all these jewels, we didn't see Gagool as she snuck out of the treasure room and down the passageway. "Help! Help!" we suddenly heard Fulada cry. "Captain Good, the rock falls!" "Let go of me, girl!" came another voice. "Help! She has stabbed me!" Fulata screamed. We ran as fast as we could down the passage, carrying the lamp. The stone door at the end was slowly closing down. Fulata and Gagool were wrestling on the floor nearby. We could see that Fulata had been stabbed, but she still held on to the old witch. Gagool struggled like a wildcat. Then Gagool broke free. Fulata fell. Gagool dove and scrambled under the stone door, but she didn't make it. The door caught her. The 30 tons of stone continued to drop. It slowly pressed her against the rock below. She shrieked, and then with a sickening crunch, the door was shut. We turned to Fulata. She'd been stabbed by Gagool's knife and couldn't live long. She motioned me closer. Tell my friend Captain Good that maybe I will see him again in the stars. I will search them all. Oh. She's dead, Good said. Tears were running down his face. "Don't let it bother the old fellow," Sir Henry said. "What do you mean?" "I mean, soon we will all join her. Don't you see? We are buried alive." Buried alive. Until Sir Henry had spoke these words, the full horror of what had happened did not come home to us. Now we understood that the only person who knew how to open the door was dead. It was closed forever, and we were on the wrong side of it. Gagool, we saw, had planned this trap from the beginning. She would have been very happy to think of us dying of hunger and thirst while surrounded by the treasure we had come so far to find. Maybe somebody had tried the same trick on old Jose Sylvester. For a while we looked desperately for the handle that worked the door. We could find nothing. "There's no handle," I said. "That's why Gagool was so desperate to escape." "Well, at least she was punished for her crime," Sir Henry said. "Let's go back to the treasure room." Took Fulada's corpse and laid it on the floor beside the box of coins, and Then we sat down by the diamond chests and divided the food that remained. There were only a few bites for each one of us, and only 1 quart of water.
Not just merely dead, but really most sincerely dead. It's no place like home.
After we'd eaten a little, we examined all the walls of the room, hoping for another way out. What time is it, Quatermain? Sir Henry asked. I looked at my watch, 6 o'clock in the evening. We'd entered the cave at 11 that morning. The lamp was growing dim. We were almost out of oil.
That's a bad idea.
If we don't return, Infidus will search for us, I said. Doesn't matter. He does not open the door, or even where it is. No one knows. There's no hope for us, my friends. Men have died in the hunt for the treasure. We will too. A minute later, the lamp flared up, showing us the whole scene, the tusks, the gold, the diamonds. And suddenly it sank and went out. We sat there, total darkness. We tried to get some sleep. We were tired, but the thought of the slow death that we faced made sleep difficult. Plus, it was too quiet to sleep. No one can imagine how terrible true silence is. We knew that 1,000 feet above us, the wind swept over the narrow, snow-capped mountains. But we couldn't even hear a whisper. No sound at all found its way through the solid rock that separated us from the outside. We were rich, all right, but we would have rather given all the diamonds for the hope of escape. How many matches do you have, Quatermain? Sir Henry asked. 8, I said. Strike one. Let us see the time. I lit the match. The light nearly blinded us. It was 5 o'clock. Dawn would be breaking outside. We ate a little breakfast. I suggested we try shouting to attract attention. Good had a loud voice. He went down with the stone door and shouted as loudly as he could. That only made him thirsty, and we were almost out of water. No one could hear him anyway. He gave up. We sat down by the useless diamonds. I gave in to my feelings of despair and began to weep. Captain Good did the same. Sir Henry kept his head and comforted us both. We sat there all day. A day that was darker than the darkest night for us. I lit another match and saw that it was 7 o'clock. We ate and drank a little. Then an idea struck me suddenly. How is it, I said, that there is still fresh air in here? Well, it can't come through the stone door, Good said. That's sealed tight. It must come from somewhere else, or we wouldn't be able to breathe all this time. Well, that means there's hope, Sir Henry said. We had to try and find where the air was coming from. So each of us crawled around the room on our hands and knees for more than an hour. We kept banging into the walls or stacks of chests. Sir Henry and I found nothing and gave up. Good continued searching. I say, you fellows, come here. We scrambled through the dark to this corner of the room. Do you feel anything here? Good asked us. I think it's a snake. I think I feel air coming up from the floor. Listen. He stamped on the floor. It sounded hollow. I had only 3 matches left. I lit one. We could see that there was a crack in the floor. Set into that section was a stone ring. Our hearts pounded with hope. Captain Good had a jackknife. He used it to pry up the ring. He pulled on it with all his might. It wouldn't budge. Let me try, I said. I tried and tried to lift it with no use. The stone wouldn't move. Sir Henry tried next and failed. Let's give it one more effort, Good said. Henry grabbed the ring. I put my arms around his waist. Good put his arms around my waist. On a signal, we all pulled at once. Suddenly there was a sound, a rush of air, and we all fell over on our backs. Light a match, Sir Henry said. I did so. Beneath where the stone had been was the first step of a stone stairway. I went back to get the food and water, what little there was left, and I had an idea. I filled all the pockets of my hunting coat with diamonds. I grabbed a few handfuls of big ones from the third chest and stuffed them in, too. Won't you take some diamonds, you fellows? I called to the others. Hang the diamonds! I hope I never see another one. Good didn't answer. He wasn't thinking about diamonds, but about Foulata. He'd been very fond of the girl and was sad to leave her behind. Don't do that. He only has 1 match left. Don't fart. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Monkeys do that, too. Sir Henry started to walk carefully down the stair. When he reached the bottom, he shouted back, It's a passage! Come on down! Good and I followed him down. At the bottom, I lit another match. The narrow passage ran right and left. Before we could see any more, the match burnt my fingers and went out. The air blew the match toward the right, Good said. That means we should go to the left. We groped along the passage for a quarter hour. We came to a place where another passage cut across it. We took that. A third went off in another direction. We kept going like that for several hours, as if we were moving through a maze. It must be an old mine, I said. Maybe this is where they found the diamonds. By now we were completely worn out. We sat down to eat our remaining dried meat and drink our last swallow of water. We saw there was little hope of finding our way out now. Wait a minute, I said. What's that? I hear a sound. By heavens, Good said. It's running water. We began moving toward the distant sound of water. Soon we came near it. Yes, Good said. I can smell it. And suddenly, with a splash, Good fell in. Where are you? We shouted in the darkness. A second later, he answered, I'm here. I have hold of a rock. I lit our last match. We saw a dark mass of rapidly running water. Good was hanging onto a rock in the middle of the stream. Now he let go and paddled as fast as he could. The stream almost swept him away, but he managed to grab Sir Henry's hand. We pulled him onto our shore. We drank our fill of water and washed our faces. We went back the way we had come. When we came to another passage, we took it. All ways are alike here, Sir Henry said. We go only on until we drop. We were so tired already we could hardly walk. We continued on for a long time, groping through the dark without hope of finding a way out. We stopped to rest. Suddenly I grabbed Sir Henry by the arm. What's that? Look! Is my brain going? What is that light I see? We stared into the darkness, and there, far ahead of us, was a faint and glimmering spot. It was so faint, we never would have seen it, except their eyes had looked at nothing but blackness for so long now. We pushed on. In 5 minutes, we were sure it was a patch of faint light. A breath of real live air was fanning us. Now the tunnel began to narrow. Sir Henry continued ahead on his hands and knees. We struggled along behind him. Soon we were all crawling. The hole was hardly larger than a fox's burrow, but now it was earth, not rock. Sir Henry squeezed forward. Would he fit? He struggled and kicked, and then he was out. Good and I followed close behind him. Above us were the blessed stars. Our nose breathed sweet air. And then something gave, and we were tumbling over and over through the grass and bushes of wet soil. I caught on something and stopped. I yelled to the others. Sir Henry was on some level ground below me. He was out of breath, but not hurt. We found Good jammed in the forked root of a tree. We sat down and cried for joy. We had escaped a dungeon that would have been our grave. In the sky, the dawn we never thought we would see was blushing red. As the light came down the slope, we saw that we were near at the bottom of the vast pit in front of the cave entrance. We could see the 3 big statues peeking over the edge at the edge at us. The caves we had passed through were certainly connected to the diamond mine. We looked at each other. We were all hollow-eyed, dirty, bruised. We were all fearful. The terrible fear we had felt was written on our faces. Captain Good, though, still had his monocle fixed in his eye. Nothing could make him lose that. For an hour we worked our way to the top, pulling ourselves by grass and roots. Finally we reached the great road opposite the statues. We walked around and found a fire burning. Before we reached it, we saw Infidus running towards us. My lord, it is you! Come back from the dead! He took us back to the camp, where we ate and drank and lay down to rest. It took us a couple of days to recover our strength. Then we went back into the pit to try and find the hole we had come out of. We had no luck. Rain had washed away our tracks. The pit was full of foxholes, but none of them went anywhere. We entered again the stalactite cave and even the place of death. We couldn't see any way to open this great stone door. We couldn't even find the door. The wall was solid rock without a seam. After a while, we gave up. I hated to leave behind what was probably the greatest treasure ever discovered in the world, but I don't know whether I would have had the courage to enter, even if the passage had opened before us. Maybe someday, centuries from now, another explorer will find his way into Solomon's treasure chest, or maybe all those sparkling stones will lay undiscovered forever. We can't be too disappointed, I told the others as we started back. Remember, I filled my pockets with diamonds before we started. Do you still have them? Good asked. Most of them fell out when I was sliding down the pit. I still have a lot. It's enough to make us all millionaires. A few days later, we were back in our old hut at Lou. Ignacy listened to our story with wonder. When we came to the part about Gagul's death, he called over the oldest man in the city. "When you were young," Ignacy said, "do you remember the witch doctor Gagul?" "I do, my king. When I was a child, she was already very old, very ugly, and very full of evil." "She is dead. That is well. She brought a curse to our land." "You see," Ignacy said to us, "all of us rejoice that she is dead. If she had lived, she might have found a way to kill me as she killed my father." When we finished telling our story, I said, "The time has come for us to say goodbye, my friend. Ignacy, you came here with us as a servant. We leave with you as a king. Remember your promise to rule justly and respect the law. You can repay us by giving us guides to lead us across the mountains." Ignacy covered his face with his hands before he answered. "What have I done to offend my friends? Settle here with me. I will give you anything. Houses, cattle, armies to lead. We do not want those things. We go to seek our own place." "I see. It is the bright stones you love more than your friends. You only want to go back and sell them and become rich." I laid my hand on his arm. "Ignacy, you were wandering the land of the Zulu and in the land of the white men. Did your heart not turn to your native land that your mother told you about?" "It did." "That is all we desire, my friend, to go home." You are wise," he said. "I am sad to see you go. There is another way across the mountains. My uncle Infidus will show it to you. Remember how we stood shoulder to shoulder in the great battle. Goodbye forever, my friends." The next day at dawn, we left Lou with Infidus and a group of soldiers. All the streets were lined with Kukuana, who waited to see us go. They gave us the royal salute and threw flowers at our feet. Before we reached the edge of a town, a pretty young girl ran up and spoke to Captain Good. "What does she say?" he asked me. "She says she's traveled for 4 days to see your beautiful white legs. She wants to tell her grandchildren about them." "I'm not showing my legs to anyone," he replied. "You must," Sir Henry said. "How could you refuse a lady?" Good agreed to pull his pants legs up to the knees. When she saw them, everyone pointed and said, "Oh!" He walked that way until we were out of town. Sir Henry and I could hardly keep from laughing. Infidus led us on a path to another pass north of Solomon's Road. This one wound down the face of the cliffs beyond the White Twins. "Out there in the desert is an oasis with plenty of water," Infidus told us. "It will make your journey through the sands easier. This is probably the way that Ignacy's mother traveled across the mountains," Sir Henry said. Then we reached the cliff. We said goodbye to our good friends Infidus. He told us that he would send 5 guides with us, carrying plenty of food and water. We all shook hands. Good even gave Infidus a spare monocle. The old warrior clenched it in his right eye and smiled. It was a strange sight, but he was happy. We made it to the bottom and started across the desert. That night we camped. Sir Henry said, "There are worse places in the world than Kukuana land." "Yes," Good said. "I almost wish I was back there." "Well, all's well that ends well," I said. "But I hope I never again have as close a call as all the close calls we had there." The next day we struggled our way across the burning desert and camped again. On the 3rd day we came in sight of the oasis. We'd reach it by sundown. It was there that we see the strangest sight of all. And for now we were just grateful that relief and shelter were within a few minutes' walk. Even with good food and water, the trek across the desert was, well, taking all the effort we were still capable of making. What else might await us there, we couldn't begin to speculate. The sound of running water was very sweet in our ears. I was walking in front of the others. I descended into that green glade and came to the bubbling spring. I rubbed my eyes. Was I seeing things? Across the stream in the shade of a fig tree was a hut. A hut. It was built of grass, as most houses there are there, but the door was bigger than usual. "What in the dickens can a hut be doing here?" I said to myself. Then something even stranger happened. The door opened, and a big green slug limped out, with a pretty slave girl, very skimpy underwear, chained to his left arm by a manacle. Wrong song. The door opened and a white man limped out. He was dressed in skins and had a long black beard. I thought the sun must be making me see things. No hunter ever came to a place like this. He certainly wouldn't settle here. As I stared, Sir Henry and Captain Good came up. Is that a white man? Or am I mad? The man gave a cry and hobbled forward. Before he reached us, he dropped down in faint. Sir Henry leaped to his side and looked closely into his face. Great heavens! It's my brother, George! A second figure came out of the hut. He also gave a cry and ran towards us. Quatermain! Don't you remember me? I am Jim, the hunter. He fell down and wept for joy. The man with the beard recovered. He and Sir Henry shook hands without a word. Whatever they had quarreled about, it was long forgotten. I thought you were dead, Sir Henry said at last. I've been over Solomon's Mountains looking for you. I tried to go over those mountains myself, he answered, but when I got there, a boulder fell on my leg and crushed it. I couldn't go on, and I couldn't go back. That evening, George Curtis told us his story. He'd taken from Satanda's village 2 years earlier. He had heard of the passage up the cliffs and was trying to reach it. When they got as far as the oasis, Jim tried to extract honey from a bee's nest. He accidentally loosened a boulder, which broke George's leg. Since they couldn't move, they lived for 2 years by shooting game that came to the oasis for water. When their clothes wore out, they made new ones of animal hides. We were thinking that Jim should go and get help from the village, George told us. He's going to start tomorrow, but I had no hope of ever seeing him again. Sir Henry told his brother all about your adventures. We had to sit up until late at night to finish the story. We showed him the diamonds. They belong to Quatermain and Good, Sir Henry said. That was the bargain. This made me think. Later, after talking with Good, I said to Sir Henry, there are plenty of diamonds for everyone, you know. If you won't take your share, we'll give them to your brother. He suffered as much as any of us trying to get to them, and he needs the money. Sir Henry agreed. The trip back across the desert was difficult. We had to help support George, whose leg was very weak, but we managed. Back at Satanda's village, we found our guns and baggage quite safe, and my whip. We continued on, finally reaching my house near Durban. Sir Henry and George and Captain Good returned to England. I stayed in Africa to write my account of what had happened, which is now finished. This morning I received a letter from Sir Henry. Captain Good is now clean-shaven, with a new coat and a new monocle. You must come back, Quatermain. You can buy a little house near us. We won't tell anyone the story of our adventures until you write your account of them. What's more, your son Harry is here. He's gone hunting with us and is a good sportsman. Please come. I thought about Sir Henry's letter for several hours. I was suddenly homesick for my England, my country that I hadn't seen for so many years, and my son, my Harry, my only living relative. There's a ship leaving for England on Friday. I think I'll sail in it. It'd be good to see my boy Harry again. I must see about getting the story printed. I wouldn't trust anyone else to do it. That's the end of King Solomon's Mines.